Wanted to thank Johan for working with Tobias, our lawyer, just to make sure that we're on top of the GDPR regulations. I've had a look at the email. In particular, you wanted us to review the cookie policy and the privacy policy. So that's something I've focused on over the last little while. And I want to share with you some of my main feedback. So the first is that when it comes to this regulation, I wonder if it's beneficial for us to expand the scope to not just GDPR, but other regions. There's the CCPA or COPPA. There's a number of other privacy regulations, so make it more generic to regulations, privacy regulations, as opposed to GDPR, which is EU only. And when it comes to the products, are we covering all products? And when it also comes to the customers, do we cover all customers, including our own employees, or do we have a privacy policy for end users? To me, it would make most sense to have one specifically for end users because it can be quite alarming to see like that you're going to be monitoring people's dietary preferences, their income levels, their previous employment. I mean, that's that stuff that is way beyond the scope of a typical end user license agreement. But this is not an end user license agreement. The other was the cookie policy. It's the same thing, just making sure that we understand the scope of this. It says it refers to NUITEQ's website, but I think there are other websites like snow.live or like our answer it or stage stg.live or nuitexstage.se. These are all things that we may want to cover in the scope of this policy. But overall, it's good. Like I think it has a lot of the key elements. Now, the other question I have is, okay, we have an existing privacy policy statement. Would we like to replace it with this new statement? If we do, that's totally fine. But it's something to note that we are going to be changing the policy. And I think if we do that, I think we're required to send some notice out to our clients that we are going to be changing the privacy policy. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I've already shared this before, but I think what's really important here is we are borrowing some of the tools that are available from services like Amazon in order to meet some of our requirements. And one of the good things is that many of these organizations have already signed contracts to say that they comply with most of the GDPR regulations in terms of data transfer as a contractor. So we don't have to go and get Amazon to sign something. We can just go and search and find these documents. They are available. And so upon searching, I did find that there's a number of third-party agreements. These I've shared a directory. I'll share it probably in this email as well, so that you can quickly see like the Google ones. They already have, like Microsoft has some compliance. Amazon has some GDPR compliance. And so we can use those as like the third-party contractors. We already have approval for compliance from those individuals. So it's good to have in our back pocket just in case. Now, here's one of the key messages that I had about this review is that I think that it was clear in some of the previous documentation, there's no limit to the amount of time you can spend. And it was important to look at what is the liability? What is the potential liability? And so there's this enforcement tracker, and it has a fine model for GDPR fine estimation. So if it did come to the case where, okay, there was a problem, how much would you have to pay? And so it depends on how much you earned. So let's say you earned 100,000, then your payment level would be, let's see, like 2,000 to 4,000 for a medium severity violation. And then obviously the multiplier range changes depending on the level of severity. So higher, then the amount is higher, or lower, then the amount is lower as well. So if it's a light violation. And if you increase it, so depending on how much we plan on making, so that's just something to consider is, depending on how much we plan on making with this service may determine the amount of total liability at risk. So if we took, I don't know, 3.3 million euros, for example, then you'd be looking at like about 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000 euros. And what's interesting is they have some statistics on fines, like what are the most common types of fines out there. So I'm glad that you mentioned this. So not by sectors, by type. So it seems that the most common one is just insufficient legal basis for data processing. That means you didn't get consent. So it definitely seems like consent seems to be the biggest in terms of the total dollar amount and the total number of instances. The second is, did you have enough technical and organizational measures to ensure information security? That seems to be the second largest category. So it gives you a sense of what are the things that we could focus on. So I hope this information was helpful. Thank you again for all of your work on this. It was really great to get a little bit of a refresh on our privacy policy. And if you have any questions, just send me an email. Thanks. Take care.